Tasha, good to see you again. Very excited to see you.
Yes, yes. How has life been since the podcast released?
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. It's been exciting. A lot of feedback, a lot of input, a lot of critiques, a lot of support,
Okay, yeah.
a lot of critique on some of the words I've used, the heavy breathing, the equipment.
Oh, gosh.
We've made some changes. Hopefully we're getting better. But yeah, it's been exciting. It's been fun. Love all the friends and family giving us all the great feedback.
Yeah, it has been. They are not shy with feedback, but it's been positive, and the support, like I said, a lot of people are very supportive, which is always great when you take on a new adventure. So it's been fun. I think we've been doing a good job. So let's jump into it. I know last week for the first time we kind of started our Inspire Thursdays. We talked about someone or something that inspired us for the week, and we want to make that a thing, right? The podcast is exactly for that. We want to have conversations that make you feel something, that inspire you and inspire others. So that is what we want even the listeners to be a part of. So, we have our platforms and we'll tell our stories weekly, so they'll hear that in the episode. But for the followers, we want to hear stories from you as well. So they can post. Where are we?
We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. We have people building all of that out. When I say people, that's family and friends. But yeah, we'd love to hear from everybody. We'd love to see who inspired you or what inspired you, and just hear from you guys. It's part of why we're doing what we're doing. We can be a light. We're taking that opportunity, and hopefully it catches fire, and those that are listening can give their input as well. And I'd love to see who inspires all of you. Be fantastic.
So Grandpa and the Millennial, wherever you want to search for it.
Yeah, you can find it everywhere.
You want to kick it off? Tell me about who or what inspired you this week.
Yeah, so this week I'm going to talk about my daughter. So she's Candace Taylor Bronson. I always want to say Lopez. She is turning 29 this month, which makes me feel really, really old, but incredibly proud of her. She has a ton going on. She inspired me this week. So, a little bit of background on her. She finished her bachelor's degree a couple of years ago. She works as a provider relations advocate in the insurance agency. And then while she's doing that, she's growing her own business. She's in the wedding planning business. She's a wedding planner. She tells me stories are fascinating and exciting. Taylor Bronson Events. So if you're interested or you're looking, there's a plug. She didn't sponsor it, but that's what she's doing. And then while she's doing all of that, she's been on a fitness and a health journey, and I've been able to watch her, and it's really what inspired me. So everybody has their ups and downs when they're setting goals or setting objectives, which might be some of what we're talking about today. And I've watched her just really do phenomenal on this journey. Even though she's run into some challenges and some obstacles, she's powered through those, and it's been inspiring. So not just what she's doing with herself and her family and her husband, Jesse, and she's got a couple of dogs, her business, and then what she's doing with her work, but just her as an overall human being. So love you, Stinky.
Oh, that's so sweet. And that's good. It's exciting. I know that you've told me a little bit about some of the things that she's doing. So that's really cool.
How about you? Who inspired you this week?
Yeah, for me, so many things in people, but for me this week, it was is my sister. She inspires me often. So Bailey, shout out to her. I know I don't know if she'll kill me when she hears this, but whatever. She's my little sister, so I'll do it. So I'm very close with my sister. She is probably in the race for my number one supporter. She always is there for me. So when I look at her and just think about the things that she's going through. So she works full time. She has a daughter who's 5, and she's a phenomenal mother, like absolutely phenomenal. She's working on getting her bachelor's. So she took a little time off. She's had her associates for a long time, but she took a little time off and started going back to school. So she's working on that right now. So she's always busy, constantly doing things. And she's one of those people, I think families have kind of the person that's the glue. So I'll just be working and doing my thing. And sometimes, not that I don't want to talk to people, but, if you don't text me, or I'm not making phone calls most of the time.
You're in the zone.
Yeah. But my sister, she talks to my parents every day. She checks on me on me basically every day. She reminds me when birthdays are coming up or holidays. She's like, hey, we have to, the family has to stay together. So she's just always the one that is keeping things going, and she has a lot on her plate. So for me, I've seen her through some struggles, and I've seen her work through it, and I'm just super, super proud of her. So I texted her on Friday last night, or whenever it was, Friday. What are you doing? She's like, oh, I just got off work. I'm writing a paper. She always has something. So just shout out to her. She inspires me, the work she puts in and everything she's doing. And she doesn't quit. So
I love it. I love it.
Yep.
I love Inspire Thursday. I love talking about the people that inspire us. So very, very uplifting. Very cool.
Yeah. Well then, topics for today. So, the last couple episodes, we've talked about mistakes. We've talked about our journey. You just referenced kind of goals. And so I wanted us to dig into that a little bit deeper today. And whether that's, personal, professional, whatever it is, goal setting, how has that been a part of your journey? Have there been big goals that you've hit?
There have been.
Have there been big goals that you have missed? Which I also know there have been. But that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So what are your thoughts, kind of goal setting and what that looks like?
Fabulous topic. So I am a dreamer, and we've worked together for a long time. And those that know me, I get passionate, or I get an idea and I'm like, I can make this happen. And this is how we can make it happen. And sometimes I set very unrealistic goals or targets, and directionally I'm moving in the right direction. So as I think about goals and setting goals and objectives, it's a great conversation, because you usually pull me back and you're like, oh, hold on, sandbag a little, or you're being a little bit too aggressive. I'll say, yeah, let's dive into it. So tell me the characteristics of goal setting for you, or how you go about it, or what's important to you.
Well, first, in our relationship, I always say this very often, is that you're the vision and I'm the execution. So that's how the goals are brought on. You have the long-term vision, the bigger vision, the exciting vision. And then I come in and say, okay, well, if we want to get there, this is what happens. And so when I think about goal setting, I think, goals in general, right? So there's the stage of setting them. You have to go through and know why you're doing it, right? And you have to make sure that you're working through what the actual goal is, making sure that you know. So I think it's kind of a step process for me, setting goals, taking action on them, and then obviously the outcome, whether it's worked out or it didn't.
Yeah, so I have to touch on SMART goals. And I know we're laughing because this is corporate buzzword, but it is part of the goal setting process. So I'm going to run through the 5 characteristics of a SMART goal, which is specific. You want to be clear and well-defined, measurable. So it needs to be quantifiable. You need to be able to measure your goals. Achievable, which that's debatable. Relevant, and needs to align with the skill set. So I'm not going to be able to fly to the moon. I don't have that skill set. I don't have the resources. So it has to be relevant. Time bound is very, very important. So you need to make sure that you have milestones along the way. You can measure your success and how you're doing. So that's the acronym, which is SMART goal. But when I go through my goal setting, the why is the most important to me. So when we're working together, or I'm working with the family, or I'm working with anybody on a project or setting a goal, I need to understand their why. They need to understand my why, and then we need to understand the objective and the goal that we're going after, so that we're all aligned and rowing in the same direction. If all of your whys are off, you're never going to get to the promised land. Is
the why in the SMART goals, or you think that it's separate from that?
I think it's woven in there, but I think it's separate. I think it's deeper. So when you really start to sit down with somebody and talk to them about their why and understand what their purpose is for getting up in the morning and coming into work, or whether it's within your community, coming to a sporting event or coming to church, understanding what that why is may not be part of the SMART objective or SMART acronym. It really is what drives that person, why they're there, how do their beliefs and their needs, understanding that is just key from my perspective to everybody getting to meet an objective.
And it's weird to ask a question when the word the same. So why? Why is the why important in goal setting?
Oh, you're asking some really good questions today. You're getting me deep. And so if everybody can hear as I take a drink of my vodka tonic, great question. So if you and I are going down a path, and it can be anything, we'll just call it a sales goal, an objective. And I think that you're all about how much money we can earn and what we can do and what you'll be able to buy with that money or what you'll be able to pay off. And that's what I keep coming to you every morning. I'm like, listen, we're on track to hit this goal. Look how much money you're going to make. And if your why is about helping people, regardless of the money, we're never going to be aligned. You're going to tune me out. You're not going to necessarily care. We may have a good relationship, but I'm never going to be able to tap into what motivates you. And if you flip that and I say, hey, let's talk about who we can help today. Who can we service? Who can we support in a way to get them to their objective? I'll watch you light up. I'll see you motivated. I'll see you attack that day in a much different way than if I came in and said, hey, we can make, an extra $10 by going after this individual or this person. So that why is key in how we support and we motivate and we drive people.
Yeah, I think it's a good point in that when you think about goals in like a team goal, right? If you are a part of it and you need others to come along with you, I think when you're setting your own goal, if you don't understand your own why, you're way less likely to hit the goal, right? You're not going to care about it as much. You're not going to be as bought in. You aren't like people don't set goals for things that they don't care about. So I think that's, being very clear on your why is going to help you throughout the rest of the journey to get there.
And how do you do that? When you go through and you're doing your goal setting and you're figuring out your why, how do you identify your why and attach that to a goal or objective, or for a team, or in a relationship, any one of those?
Yeah, well, it's a good question because sometimes I think sometimes your goals are sparked from something that you care about, right? Like if you want to your fitness or what, like I would get ideas of just like, oh, I want to challenge myself. So I'll set a fitness goal and I want to, one of mine, I ran a half marathon and it wasn't, I don't know if I set out to like the goal first, or I don't know if I know what I'm trying to say. Like, I think your why prompts you sometimes. So if I want to be good at work, right, and I want my team to be the best, a goal formulates from that.
Yeah.
Rather than setting a goal and like figuring out to my specific why. So I don't know if I like consciously kind of think about it. I think it just, you're more attached to things that are relevant to your own personal why. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Sometimes you have to take that step in your journey and the path opens up. Knowing you for as long as I've known you, your why is always going to be about the people and supporting people. So it may not be clear when you're taking that first step or what the specific objection is going to be, but I understand because I've seen you do it before. Sometimes you have to move. There has to be movement, or you'll sit and you'll ponder and you'll wonder and think, and nothing will ever get done. And then your why and what you're going after, and you can articulate it, you can formulate it, and you can communicate it. So sometimes you just have to take that first step.
Yeah. So I had a question on to setting goals, because it is one of the things that you called it out I was going to, though, is big goals, right? Big goals versus realistic goals. And I don't even like that term of, to your point of achievable. So let's talk about when you set, so your why or your team's why or whatever that might be, and then you're working on setting the goal. So what is your thoughts on setting it too big or too small or anything like that?
So I've learned my lesson over the years. I've been very, very aggressive in goal setting, and that has put me in positions where I've missed the target for myself and for others, and I've had to have accountability for that. And I've learned over the years that while it's okay to have a stretch goal or have a dream goal, setting realistic goals along the path to getting to that overall large goal is very important. So I still am a big dreamer. I will still set big goals, and I'll have a conversation with my family, the people around me, friends, and I'll say, hey, let's do this ridiculous, gnarly, task or objective, we can make this happen. And they'll say, yeah, okay, whatever. It's like, but let's break it down. Within 3 months, let's just try. We could take the podcast in 3 months. Let's just try and get a couple microphones and see if we can record an episode. And then next thing you know, like I said earlier, the path opens up and you start to see we might actually be able to get to this ridiculous goal. So it scares people a lot of the time. And I understand that people are like, Anthony, relax. Like you're too aggressive or you're going too hard or it's too big. Let's set something achievable. And so I have to balance that and bring people along with me. But I will always go for the big goal.
Yeah. And I think it's important, especially with you, because I've watched you. Like you said, you're a fan of the big goal, but even if we haven't gotten there, you've gotten people farther than they would have gotten otherwise. I think if the bar is set too low, right? Like people could either get there or overdo it, but whether it's a sales target or a fitness goal, whatever it is, I've watched you set these really large goals, and the amount of effort that people put into it and the amount of just pride that they're taking in getting there, it's been fascinating, because I think if the goal was originally set lower, they might have hit it, which would have been great, but they ended up outdoing it anyway, if that makes sense. So I've seen it in action, and I know that it's not everybody's style, but it's one of the things that I admire. I've seen you do it and be very successful.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. And I'm very much aware, and I've evolved over time in the way in communicating and driving and setting those goals. I'll still set high goals, but there will be achievable targets along the way so that everybody is included, everybody feels involved, and we have those celebrations. It's very, very important to celebrate along the way. But I will always be in the camp to say, yeah. let's set an unrealistic goal. So what about you? What goals or targets have you set in the past? Like, take us on a journey that you've either succeeded or you failed. Give us some insight.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned it earlier. So there's the goal setting and then there's the action, right? If you have a goal with no action, it's a thought, right? It's a wish, unless
it's a dream.
Yeah. And then you have to come in behind it and actually put the work in. And I think that's the fascinating part of the journey. Anybody can, set a goal. They have a want, right? They set a goal. They can go through their SMART steps and have this plan. But the actual effort that you put into it is where the plan might go, a different way, or all of a sudden you have to adjust and you're put into these situations. And I think that reality is what, that's the exciting stuff. I love that part. So for me, thinking about goals, I did think through a couple things that I've done, I think, in my life. And one of the biggest ones for me was college.
That's a big one.
Yes, was graduating. So I have my bachelor's degree in business, and that was, as far as long-term goals go, that was one that took me a while to get there, but I was not giving up on that one. So I'll walk you through some of that. So first, when we talk about setting a goal, right, I'll break it down. So when I set the goal, my goal was to graduate. And when I say graduate, that was it. It was like, it wasn't graduate at the top of my class or graduate with a bachelor's in whatever. It was literally like, you need to finish college.
Get it done. Goal is to get it done.
Yeah. And I'll figure out the rest as I work it out. So, thinking about my why, I did know that I wasn't sure on my major, but business was pretty safe. You could use that in multiple ways. And so I did know that I wanted to be a better business person. So I knew the classes and everything, I knew I wanted to get something out of that. But I really wanted to, truthfully, if I dig real deep on the why, I wanted to be able to say I did it. I graduate, you feel cool, and the paper, your degree is respected, and for career and all that good stuff. And so that was where it started. I knew my why. I knew I wanted to graduate college, and then had to go into action, right? Because it's overwhelming. For young people, oh my gosh, I remember sitting through and I'm doing applications for not just colleges, but financial aid, and you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay for all this stuff and how long it's going to take you and what you need and all that. It's very, very overwhelming. And you get the times where you're like, oh man, easily you could say, yeah, no, never mind. Nobody's forcing you, right? And no, definitely nobody's, hey, get yourself in debt for something you don't want to do. And so that was a big thing. So when I put together my action plan, it was, some of the standard things, right? You get a counselor, talk through, hey, this is what I want to do. What does that look like? Get expert advice if somebody's offering it to you. And so I kind of got some insights and said, okay, this is, whatever the standard is, I think like 12 credits or units or whatever a semester. And so I got my plan there. And then real life obviously is still happening. So I had to, work my work schedule around my school schedule. And
I knew you at the end.
You did. You knew me at the end. So that was kind of the action plan, right? I set it, I measured it like, hey, here's the, I think standard is like 4 years, whatever. So that's where I started, right? I'm going to get through this in 4 years. And then we're talking reality came in, right? So the consistency. So I have my goal. I know my why. I have my plan. And then I start to put in the work. And so that's where it gets hard, right? So I was taking my classes, but, I was working full time. At the time I was working 50, 60 hours a week and going to school. And so I just kept telling myself one more class, one more semester, just keep
one
inching.
more day,
yeah,
one more day.
Exactly. And it wasn't always easy. I mean, looking back, there are times I had to, you sacrifice. People were going to parties and I was working, I was doing schoolwork. I was writing papers till midnight, and then getting up at 6 the next morning to go work and, napping in my car between just the absolute grind, the hustle. And so that was where all the work was coming in. But I kept reminding myself, you're farther than you were 6 months ago. You're farther than you were, a year ago, whatever it was. And then I hit a patch in the middle. So I took off probably, I was doing that. I was working, 60-hour weeks and going to school full time. And I was running myself.
You were grinding.
I was running myself down. So I took about a year and a half off because I had some work opportunities that at the time were, making me more money. And I was like, well, let me get comfortable and then I can go back to school. And so took a little bit of time off and then I came back. Funny story in there, which I was just laughing with my boyfriend about, is I failed a class in there, right? Things don't always go your way. So I failed a class and I am not a crier, but when I got an F, I cried.
What class?
Oh my gosh. I should know this because it was traumatizing. Oh my gosh. I can't remember oh my gosh. I don't know. I want to say like,
you'll have to tell me another time. So I just needed my back pocket so I can give you a hard time.
Oh my gosh. And John was looking at me like, so don't cry. And he's like, this is what you're going to cry over? He's like, 1F? Like you've never failed that in your life? I was like, no, I was distraught. Anyway, took that class again. So yeah, it was just that. It took me, I think in total, so with that time off and everything, that goal that I set, while in high school, took me 6-7 years to make it through. And it's, it wasn't easy, but I can tell you when I took my last class and and we did meet towards the end, I had a couple classes to finish up. I was so proud of myself, like incredibly, like you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't think I could do it, but I did it. And getting to it, that was amazing. So that was probably one of the biggest goals that I've ever accomplished in my life. And while it was also very tough, while it taught me a lot, it reminds me that, that's why you set them, set another one, set your next goal, because you can do it. And, it makes you better along the way.
Well, congratulations. It's a massive goal. Yeah. So, and I did get to see you at the end and working full time and going through. I didn't get to see you when you were, twirling the pizza sign, put yourself through school, but absolutely. It's everything you said, I can relate to as far as putting in the work and taking the next step. So congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, now that I shared, you have to share one. Or some.
I'll share more of a fun one where I failed and then ended up succeeding. So my family goes camping. We've been adopted by this family, Camacho family. There's like 100 people that go camping in Mount Shasta every year. Their family. And they let us come up. We go with them. And every year I would look at this mountain. Mount Shasta is a mountain in Northern California, a little over 14,000 feet. And I looked at it and one year said, we're going to climb this mountain. And I may have had a drink or two at the time. So went home, I bought a book, and I talked to Amy, and we got about 14 of us. And we did some pre-hikes before, and it's a 2-day hike. You go up to 10,000 feet. You get crampons. You're in the snow. There's avalanche danger. You sleep in the snow. You get up at 12 or 1 a.m., and then you try and summit, and then you come back that same day. I was like, how hard could this possibly be? So it was a 100-page book. I read at least 50 pages. We were ready to go. And so we got up there, and Candace, my daughter, she was 14 or 15 at the time. Wow. And we got up to the 10,000. It was a little bit of a struggle. We got up at 12 or 1, and we started to make that hike. And she couldn't make it. And then there was a storm, and we got turned back. And we said, okay, we'll come back next month. So the next month, it was a much smaller group. I think it was 6 or 8 of us. We got up to the 10,000 feet. We got up, and it was a blizzard. And the ranger said, nope, you have to turn around. Nobody's summiting today. I was like, oh my goodness, all of this effort. So we hiked back down. So we had to wait a year. We waited a year. We came back. And this time it was 4 or 6 of us. And I definitely know the 4. And we got up to that 10,000, and I was not feeling well. I had not quite heat exhaustion, but I was not doing good. And I woke up and I told Amy, I was like, I think I'm having a heart attack. And she's like, well, there's nothing you can do. You're on top of a mountain. She's like, roll over, go to sleep, and you'll wake up in the morning or you won't. And I was like, well, thank you. So we did. I got up. We got up at 1 or 2, and we started to climb. And when we got past 12,000 feet, I got altitude sickness, and I'll never forget. It was just miserable. So the people in front of us went, they summited, they came back, and I still had a little over 1,000 feet. And I was like, let's quit. And Amy was like, no, we're getting up this mountain. This is both of our goals. So it was literally a foot by foot. We were taking steps. And so I think we were probably 50 feet from the summit, and, it was cold. It wasn't that cold, but it was cold enough, and my chin was shivering and my lip was quivering, and my eyeballs had this substance that was coming out. And
you were crying?
It was sweat. I swear it was sweat.
Oh, you were crying? Oh, I have that for my back pocket.
Yeah. Amy will say that I was crying. And so I wiped that sweat right off of my cheek, and I was like, I'm done. And she's like, no, you're going to finish. So she dragged me up. We have a picture on the summit, and then we signed the book, Mount Shasta. We came back down. Got past 12,000 feet, and I was back to myself. But that trip itself had just taught me about goal setting. It took me over a year and a half, and we did the planning. My why, I wanted to do it with my friends and family. I wanted to be on top of that mountain. And I learned a lot along the way. I learned about setting appropriate goals, understanding what you can measure, what you can't measure, and what's in your control, what's not in your control. And the first 2 times, I didn't do enough preparation to understand what I was doing. And it's taught me as I've gone on, anytime I take on a goal, is really sit down, take the time, and understand what the objective is, what you're trying to achieve. And that just like climbing a mountain, any goal that you have, if you put in the consistency and you go days, a week, a month, when you look back, you're going to say, oh my goodness, I'm almost on top of this mountain. You're not even going to realize it, even though you're going through this grind and you're going through this pain. I mean, it happens all the time in work or in the fitness journey or anything that we're doing. When you look back, you're like, you know what? I've gained a lot of ground. I didn't even realize it. I was just so focused on what I was doing from day to day. So that would be one of the goals. So I failed in that, but then I also succeeded. And I had people, like everything that I've ever achieved in life, I had people around me that were pushing and pulling and helping me get to where I needed to get. So that's my story there on the goals.
Do you think that your mindset or your method or your approach in goal setting, whether it's how you feel about them or how you set them and take action has changed as you've gotten older?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Marine Corps played a big part in the way that I would goal set in the beginning. It was look at the hill, how do you take the hill and go? Or look at the objective, what do you want? Go. So that's absolutely changed over the years. So as you look at the objective and you start to look at the why and you look at the resources that you have and the planning and setting milestones and then other people's whys and bringing them along with you. And if it's a personal goal, it's the same. So typically on a Sunday night, I sit down, I write down everything that I'm going to accomplish for that week, and it's by day so that I know I'm getting up at 4:30 every single morning, and I know everything that I need to check off for that day. So yes, it's evolved over time. And what about you? So a little bit different as far as experiences and time, but has it changed for you as well?
For me, I asked the question and I also thought about my answer. And I don't know if it has so much changed for me. I think, like I said, I think the one thing I could probably be more well, I guess aware. So obviously I have goals and I set them, but sometimes they're in a way that is just, oh, this is supposed to, right? I'm supposed to be the best at my job, or I'm supposed to, have this or that or whatever. So I think sometimes it might be not giving myself credit or noticing that that's what I'm doing. So I could be more aware of it, but I don't think that's really changed. I think what's changed in me, and that has been a lot from my leadership experience, is goal setting and helping other people through their goals. I think I've gotten a lot better at that, which starts at understanding their why and helping them through it. But leading teams has absolutely, I think, and it's taught me a lot along the way too. So I think that's what's changed. I think I'm better at understanding other people's goals when they have them and helping them through that process.
So as you think about goal setting and the people that we're trying to help, whether it's through a podcast or you're just going to do one-on-one, what do you want people to take away from this conversation, and what should stick with people? We talked about a lot today. We told our stories, we talked about inspire, but what do you want people to walk away with from goal setting?
I'd say, excuse me. I would say the one thing is questioning yourself, right? Take a second and a breath and take inventory. When's the last time you've set a really good goal for yourself, a challenging goal for yourself, something that's going to push you outside your comfort zone? I think that would be a big one. Is sometimes we go through the motions and we don't realize, like, hey, what am I pushing myself? Am I doing something for myself or for somebody else that, is worthwhile? So I think that just taking a second and thinking about their own goals is important. And then I think also taking stock of how you go about that. Maybe you have a bunch of goals and maybe you look back and it's like, man, I set goals and I never hit them. Or I have a really big goal right now and I'm not getting there. And so I think take into account, what is your plan? And are you, putting in the effort, and are you being consistent, and can, you do it differently, or do you need to, just really I'm huge on accountability and self-reflection. I very much, I'm always going to question myself. So definitely, I think just taking a moment to yourself, I would hope that would be the takeaway is, do you have goals? What are you working towards? Is it something that excites you and, starts a fire, like gives you passion? And if you're not, then maybe you need to find something.
That's great.
Yeah.
Mine's a little bit different.
Yeah, go for it.
So I agree with everything that you said.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that I want people to walk away with. And I didn't come up with this. I don't know where I heard it. But you either have excuses or results, and you don't get both. So as you set your goals and you make smart goals, you write down what you're going to do. And I'll use my fitness journey as an example. I set my alarm clock every morning for 4:30, and either I get up or I don't. And it doesn't matter the reason why. It's either an excuse or a result. And so as people are going through and they're setting their goals, it's another way that I attack it. And I know that I have to get something accomplished today. I either get it done or I look and say, okay, I needed to watch a Netflix show. I wanted to have a drink. All of it is an excuse, and all of it takes me off the path of getting to the result that I want. So you could do everything right, but walk away with and let it stick in your head. You either have an excuse or a result, but you can't have both. So
I think you wrote that exact quote on my whiteboard at work. So I read it every day. I do know that one.
Great. This has been, I love having these conversations. I could sit here and talk for hours, and I know that from the feedback we're getting, there's people that are enjoying them and like the topics. And for those that it's not their cup of tea, I love you anyways. You just don't tune in. We're good with it. But I know we're helping a few people through just conversation. I love it.
Yeah. And the topics I would love to hear. I know I have a few people that had ideas or things that they wanted to hear some insight on. And so, again, if there's any ideas or topics that people want to hear about, feel free to engage on some of those platforms that we mentioned. And yeah, we'll just keep having good conversations.
Yeah. And what I'm excited about is I wasn't expecting so many people to actually want to be on the podcast. It's really interesting. But we do have some guests that are coming up, and I'm not going to make any announcements now. We're still going through that, but we will have a segment that tell us your story, or we sit down with people and we want to hear their story. We want to know how they got to where they're at. Good, bad, ugly, boring, exciting. Everybody has a story. And so we want to hear from people. And you'll probably see that on the social media as well as we start going through it. We'll tag it, tell us your story, and we can hear about different people. So looking forward to all of that.
Oh yeah. My questions, they better prepare. All right. Is that it?
I think that's it for us. How are you going to close us out?
As usual, Gramps the Millennial out.